This just in.
'49ers news update time. Welcome to the '49ers Cutback channel. Lots of news coming out of Santa Clara. Kyle Shanahan has just spoken to reporters, and we've got a lot of injury updates. We've got signings. We've got practice windows being opened. Lots of news about your San Francisco 49ers. And, of course, all the question marks surrounding the offensive line are definitely on display. So the 49ers addressed it in a big way. It starts out with, well, the good news, Trent Williams, he will be limited in practice with the groin, meaning there is a possibility he could play against the Commanders. 49ers definitely dodged a bullet here. A groin injury can be pretty significant. The fact that Trent Williams wanted to go back in the game kind of left us all feeling a little bit better about that situation. And now Kyle Shanahan says, hey, he's got a chance to play in the game. So we'll see what happens with Trent. When it comes to his running mate, Aaron Banks missed practice today with a toe injury. So Banks back to dealing with that toe. We've seen him leave the game late in the fourth quarter. And now his ability to play against the Washington Commanders is now in question. Of course, having a versatile player like John Feliciano means he could flip to left guard, and Spencer Burford could go back into right guard and play in that starting unit. So the 49ers could possibly be without Banks. We'll wait and see how this goes during the week. And if he returns to practice sometime this week, he will have a chance to play. But a little bit of bad news there as he misses the game. Jalen Moore, drafted in the same draft class as Aaron Banks, he suffered a concussion in the game, is in concussion protocol. Of course, he's not going to practice, and his availability is unknown. You just don't know how players are going to progress through concussion protocol. So the 49ers did what everyone kind of expected, and they re-signed Matt Pryor. Offensive lineman Matt Pryor has been with the 49ers since the offseason and was released prior to the game against the Baltimore Ravens because of an injury at the wide receiver position to Juwan Jennings. They had to bring Willie Snead to the active roster, and they had no more elevations. So they released Matt Pryor. Luckily, he cleared waivers, and he's back with the San Francisco 49ers, and he could see playing time depending on what happens with Trent Williams and what happens with Jalen Moore this week. So the 49ers making sure they are healthy and ready to go on the offensive line. More bad news as young rookie standout Ji'Ayir Brown is dealing with a knee sprain. He's going to be missing practice, and his availability for the game is unclear, according to Kyle Shanahan. Depending on what type of knee sprain and how significant it is, will determine his availability for the Commanders, but even the Los Angeles Rams. So right now is a time where the 49ers possibly a little bit more thin in the secondary than we'd like. They did sign Logan Ryan a couple weeks ago. He is up to speed on how to play the position. So Logan Ryan could get some playing time. He could start next to Tayshaun Gibson against the Washington Commanders. So bad news, Ji'Ayir Brown potentially out for a little bit. We'll see. Maybe he will be able to come back this week, but right now it's not looking like that's going to be the case. We had more injuries and guys who were limited in practice. Deebo Samuel limited with a neck injury. The belief is that Deebo will be ready and able to play against the Washington Commanders. The good news is he's out there in a limited capacity. Javon Hargrave continues to be limited in practice, but after seeing what he did in the game versus the Baltimore Ravens and how well he played, the truth is we've got to feel very confident that Javon Hargrave is going to work himself through this week and be available to play against the Washington Commanders. Also, returning to practice, so some good news. Oren Burks missed the last 2 weeks with knee tendonitis. Well, that's not going to hold him out from getting back into the action as he's going to return to practice in a limited capacity. But the hope is that when the 49ers play the Commanders on Sunday, he will be strapping it up and be able to be the Sam linebacker. The 49ers have definitely missed Oren Burks. His range, his ability to play the run has definitely been missed from that Sam linebacker position. So the 49ers are getting potentially one of their best players back. A starting caliber linebacker is exactly what the 49ers need right now. 49ers were better at tackling against the Baltimore Ravens than they were the previous week against the Arizona Cardinals. But you got Hargrave back. Now you want to get Oren Burks back. And, of course, Sebastian Joseph Day begins practicing with the 49ers today. So some good news coming out of Santa Clara, that is for sure. more good news is that Ambry Thomas is not more significantly injured than maybe we thought. So coming out of the game, the report was Ambry Thomas was dealing with a hamstring. And anytime it's a hamstring injury, it just makes you nervous. Depending on how bad the hamstring injury is, it can hold you out for several weeks. Well, it's not going to hold out Ambry Thomas that long. He is limited in practice, and it's not a hamstring. In fact, it's a knee and hand. So we'll see exactly where Ambry is, but we do know that Kyle Shanahan is very comfortable with Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir in the secondary, and they're going to need him to step up. With injuries to Ji'Ayir Brown, that secondary is going to have to make sure they step up and make plays with a very good, very talented Washington Commanders team on the horizon. Lots of speed, lots of playmakers, lots of guys who can create after the catch. And so Ambry Thomas is definitely needed. To make room earlier for Matt Pryor, the 49ers went ahead and waived running back Jeremy McNichols. And Jeremy McNichols, of course, the 49ers elevated him a couple weeks back. They had moved on from TDP, brought TDP to the practice squad, and then signed McNichols. McNichols was playing special teams this week in place of Womack as one of the gunners and some of the guys on special teams. But it looks like the 49ers needed to create a roster spot for Matt Pryor. And so now they move on from the running back. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that Elijah Mitchell wasn't listed in Kyle Shanahan's injury report, which means not only is Elijah Mitchell back and capable to play this week, but he's a full participant in practice. That means the 49ers can roll with McCaffrey, Mitchell, and Jordan Mason and feel very comfortable with their running back room. That allows them to have a roster spot available for one of the offensive linemen in case Banks, Trent Williams, or both aren't available to go. 49ers really ran into a problem in the game where they almost ran out of offensive linemen as Ben Barch got his first action of the season for the 49ers in that game versus the Baltimore Ravens. 49ers also brought back Willie Snead. So Willie Snead had signed before the game to the active roster to play in place of Juwan Jennings. And the 49ers cut Willie Snead yesterday and then brought him back today onto the practice squad. Very similar to what they did last year. They kept doing that, bringing him to the active roster and then releasing him and then re-signing him to the practice squad. And Snead has been a team player willing to do that for the team. With Juwan Jennings, he's still in concussion protocol. That's all we know about Jennings, and his availability for the game is up in the air. How he progresses through concussion protocol this week will determine whether he can play against the Washington Commanders. If we don't see Jennings on the field Thursday or Friday, there's a real possibility that Jennings won't be available for the Commanders game. He does have time. Definitely has time to clear protocol. But the fact that Jennings has been in protocol for now a week and a half means it was a very significant concussion that he suffered. And so they're going to make sure they take their time. They're going to make sure that he clears, that his baseline is where it's supposed to be before he returns. And if you want to know how it is for players to go through concussion protocol, go check out the video I did on Brock Purdy and how you progress through concussion protocol. Gives every single step of what the players have to do. It's pretty intriguing, so check that out. And while you're doing that, please like and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. On the push for 5K. And like always, if you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe. They also signed another offensive lineman in Sebastian Gutierrez. So we knew that they had roster spots available. They cut a defensive tackle yesterday. And they signed Sebastian Gutierrez to make sure they have the potential depth they need just in case some of their players are unavailable for the game versus the Commanders. So 49ers doing their due diligence, using the practice squad to have players that could be available to step up and get in on the action. So 49ers do that. And then some more great news for the San Francisco 49ers. They have opened the practice window for Danny Gray. So what that means is Danny Gray is going to be practicing with the football team. He has 21 days to practice, and they can make a determination of whether they want to add him back to the active roster or not. So Danny Gray finally, after the injury during preseason, is going to be out on the practice field and potentially available for the 49ers whenever they decide that they want to use him. And with Raven McLeod out and Juwan Jennings dealing with concussion protocol, they could definitely use him. Now, of course, if they activate him from the injured reserve list, they will have to create a roster spot for him. One of the most difficult things at this time is when you have players that are resting that you don't want to put on IR because you don't want to lose them, and then still have to be able to have a player that you want to bring back like Danny Gray, who has explosive speed and is a big-time special teams performer. So good news for the 49ers, some bad news, but I think all in all, great news that Trent Williams is limited in practice and potentially going to play versus the Washington Commanders. Thank you guys so much for watching this news update. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.